here. I'm doing this video as a kind of response video. Actually, it is a response video to comments by a subscriber called personX, and I think he makes some very interesting points. So I said to him, I'll do this as a response video rather than just answering in line. So the first thing is, in one video he was talking about, he says, I think a key point that you make is about the seeming recognition in Thai culture that it is up to each individual to find their own path. And this is an aspect of Thailand, is a paradox to me that I do not fully understand. Right, now the first thing to understand is that Thailand is a Buddhist culture, and Buddhism is a very interesting religion and philosophy. It doesn't specify specific goals in life. It specifies the way that you should live your life. So there are 5 principles. Among them are like, don't lie, don't cheat, don't be promiscuous, don't kill. There's a very basic set of guidelines. And after that, it's up to the individual to live their life as fully as they possibly can, in accordance with their own desires, without harming other people, and without basically breaking any of these rules. So he then goes on to say, it's socially quite a conformist culture. In other words, it's far more individualistic than the supposedly individualistic Western culture. Absolutely right. The social conformism comes from the fact that these cultures in Southeast Asia sit on top of much older understandings of social of society, in which social rules are quite rigidly set out. They're quite conformist. So in some ways they're conformist, but at the same time they're quite open. And Buddhism certainly is very open. But in the Philippines here, I'm in the Philippines, and people definitely do live their own lives here. They say, no, nobody can judge me but God. So I'll make my peace with him when I have to. Meantime, this is what I am. And as long as you don't break the rules of the culture and you show respect, then this is not going to be a problem. There's far more attempt at social control in the West, which is a slightly different thing from conformity. A quick anecdote, which I wrote into one of my books called French Onion Soup. A long time ago, I was planning to move to France with my family, my young family at the time, and we thought about going to a particular village. So I had contacted estate agents in that village saying, do you have any property for sale? And I got a bunch of letters back for properties that basically were not interesting at all. But I got another letter, which was from the president, who was a woman, the chairwoman of the Expatriates Association of this particular village. And it told me how they would be so pleased to welcome me into this village. She was an English woman. But please to remember that there were ways that we expect expats to behave and to uphold the good standing of the expatriate community within the broader community. A load of bullshit about how she expected me to do as she told me. And I said, first thing I said was, I ain't going there. And the second thing I said was, well, goodness, that's just what the English are like, I'm afraid. And that's what Anglo-Saxon culture is like. It's constantly trying to decide for you how you should behave. And you get it all the time. You'll see it all the time. You see things like age-appropriate relationships. You'll find women saying, your men shouldn't be dating girls half their age. Well, why the hell not? And who are you to tell me that I can't? You see? So when we talk about individualistic Western culture, or the supposedly individualistic Western culture, you're allowed to be individual in the West in certain ways, but only in certain ways. It seems that there is a recognition in Thailand that sexuality and gender are mutable, and this leads to a level of acceptance of people who do not conform that is much more fundamental than the superficial tolerance that is idealized in the West. In Thailand, there is serious disapproval and ridicule of ladyboys still, and many parents would not be pleased at all to have a son who becomes a ladyboy because of the loss of face, social status, grandchildren it entails. But there also seems to be a resignation to the reality of transgender people. In the West, it seems trans people are not regarded as real people expressing their genuine identity, but as deranged freaks, etc., etc. I think that last was certainly true until quite recently. And unfortunately, I think some people still think that. But I think that I don't like the word transgender because it's been rendered meaningless by idiots like Julia Serrano. But gender dysphoria is becoming better understood, I hope, partly through efforts by people like me. In Thailand and in the Asia generally, well, I think that, yeah, you might be right. There certainly is some, you might call it barracking, of ladyboys goes on in school and stuff like that, but it's very low level. And the reason is because there's so many of them. You know, when so many people fit into a certain group, you know, and you have ladyboys in your family, everybody has a ladyboy in their family here, you know. It's like, how can you go around insulting them or beating them up when, you know, your sister or your cousin is going to come over and say, hey, what do you think you're doing? Yeah, that's my pal. You know what I mean? It's just, you reach a level of saturation at which point it just becomes de facto accepted. And yeah, parents might be in some cases a little disappointed, but then at the same time, I've heard confirmed stories of young boys being brought up as girls by their mothers because they wanted a girl to live with them as they got older. You know, they maybe had lost their husband. They had several children, and the youngest one is brought up as a girl. I think in general terms, speaking about the Philippines, where I'm more familiar, fathers tend to be rather more unrelentingly hostile to the idea than mothers. Mothers seem to be okay with it. You know, it's like, that's your thing. And the thing is that ladyboys, and we're talking about using this word because it's used by ladyboys themselves here, so don't get on your high horse. Ladyboys themselves are extremely loving people, and they're very close usually to their mothers. Mothers know that, and the bond between ladyboys and their mothers can be really very strong. You know, so this possibly explains that. Right, he said, first of all, if I understand you correctly, then feminine gay men are basically frustrated homosexual transsexuals who are trapped in a new gay man persona because of social approval. Well, basically, yes and no. There's a scale of variation, right? Now, that doesn't mean you're frustrated. If your natural position on the scale of variation is not one in which your gender dysphoria is so strong that you want to transition, or you need to transition, then you're not frustrated. You're just yourself. You know, that's just where you sit. And a person like that might, here in the Philippines, might, for example, wear dresses and have a zany hairdo, but not actually take hormones and grow their hair long. You know, there's a distinction, I should say, and I think this probably is also mirrored in Thai culture, but maybe a bit less so, but there's a strong distinction here in Filipino culture between long hairs, that is, trans women who wear their hair really, you know, shoulder or beyond, and short hairs. And a lot of femboys, intermediate gays, they have short hair, but it's in an obviously gay fashion, a gay style. A ladyboy wouldn't do that. You know, a transitioned ladyboy wouldn't do that. And by the way, I should explain here. In the Philippines, it's not quite the same in Thailand, but in the Philippines, a ladyboy is a pre-operative trans woman, right? Post-operatives are different. It's a pre-operative trans woman. That's a ladyboy. It's a person who looks like a girl, but who's male, right? I don't understand where masculine gay men fit into this. I haven't seen you mention them. If a masculine man is attracted to a feminine man, then is he then effectively straight? Well, yeah, he is. That might be a little bit conditioned by the nature of the sexual relationship between them. But if one is playing completely the role of a girl and the other is playing completely the role of a guy, then this looks pretty straight to me. And then you have to look at why are they attracted to each other. If the male in this, what you call the masculine guy in this case, is being attracted to the feminine gay because of her femininity, you know, if she's a beautiful ladyboy, well, we define homosexuality as being attracted to masculinity in males. So if you're attracted to femininity, you can't be gay. It's as simple as that. You can't be homosexual. And if the girl in this is attracted to the other person's masculinity, well, she is homosexual because she's born male, attracted to masculinity. It's pretty simple. I think that the West, people try and put very strange added layers on this. And I think this is largely the fault of the new gay man, because they basically ran a campaign from around about 1975, and it's still ongoing, that anybody who had any contact with a feminine, sexually receptive homosexual male was himself gay, and that's just not true. That's not true. There's loads of straight men have relationships with ladyboys, and question there, you know, I think it would be up to each individual to decide. But if you're attracted to someone who's just on that borderline, you know, they're feminine but not completely so, not completely feminized, then are you attracted partly to that person's intermediate status, or is it the feminine bits that you're attracted to, you know? And when you're talking about ladyboys, there's always a certain degree of this because there's a penis. Trans women, Asian trans women, they live as women all the time. It's not switching on and off. They're not swapping roles. That's what they are. And they'll tell you, if you ask them, you'll say, what are you? You'll say, I'm a girl. And they'll be quite strict about it. And they're proud of it. You know, that's what I am. I'm a girl. Don't try and confuse the issue. So then he goes on to say, well, I can agree with you, there are only two biological genders, but I can understand why people talk of more because of this variety of self-expression and interaction. Yeah, I know that. I understand that. But it's just because of scales of variation. And people need to pay attention in biology class, you know. It's not all about lived experience and new age postmodernist bullshit. You know, science answers it. Science tells you everything biological is on a scale of variation. And gender is a whole bunch of different parameters, all of which are on scales of variation. So yeah, people look a bit different, you know. You can take something that has exactly the same DNA, you know, absolutely the same DNA, like the leaves on an oak tree. Take the leaves on an oak tree. I don't know how many there would be, 60,000, 100,000, I don't know. There's a lot. They all have identical DNA. They're all completely different. They're none of the, no two are the same. You follow? There is, for example, the third gender in Thailand, i.e. ladyboys. It's all in the term. Both lady and boy is one person, true, completely one another. A third gender or second kind of woman. I think that that's a fair comment, but you have to understand that in Thailand that is, can't remember the Thai words, maybe put them up on I'll research them, I certainly can't say them. When they say second type woman, they mean woman, you know, and they're talking about the sexual and social roles of women. They're not talking about biology. There is a tribe in Indonesia called the Bugis, and there's actually several tribes like this around. There's several in the Philippines, but the Bugis is the best known and it's well reported on. There they have 5 genders. And that's very famously reported. And these genders are basically man-born man, woman-born man, woman-born woman, woman-born man, and the 5th one is all at once, and those are the priests, the obelario or the shamans. Now, it should be quite obvious that actually you're only talking about 2 genders here, because what's different is, you know, what your origin was, not your gender now. So you've got men and women, but they got their different ways. So when they say second type woman, they're still sexually and socially women, but they're recognizing that there's more than one way that you can arrive in that position in sexual and social terms. We're not talking, you know, please folks, we are not talking about, you know, being biologically female, because they're not. Trans women are biologically male. It's that simple. And if there's any trans woman who's trying to deny that, is fucking bongy. They do not claim to actually be women, but they're quite clear that their biological gender is male, but they feel female heart, etc. Yeah, that's what I mean. They sit within the sexual and social role of woman, right? They seek male partners. They typically seek strong guy male partners. A lot, you have to remember that an awful lot of trans women in Asia don't work in the sex trade, and that's particularly the case in the Philippines. I mean, a lot of them will work in, shall we say, the online sex trade, but they don't actually meet men. Most trans women, the majority, don't actually do that, and most of them are looking for a nice guy to have a stable relationship for the rest of their lives with. They're looking for, and you'll hear this all the time, that famous phrase, they're looking for their life partner. Okay? And they want their life partner to be a strong masculine man with whom they can play they can be the women that they believe, that they feel themselves to be. Right? A lot of ladyboy humour seems to evolve around a self-deprecating sense of being neither completely one thing nor the other. And it's absolutely true. There's a lovely piece on one of these older YouTube videos, actually it was a television series, where a girl called Poppy, who works in one of the bars in Angeles, works in one of the bars in Pattaya. I will remember the name of that. I'll put it up. Sensations. It's very, very beautiful ladyboy. And she says how she comments on how she stands in front of the mirror, and she sees her beautiful face and her beautiful boobs, her lovely feminine figure, and she's got a dick, and she goes, well, what am I? But she said, very importantly and crucially, but I'm happy like this. This is me. I'm happy. I'm fully content. This is what I want out of my life. And I think that's a really important thing, because Poppy is not at all unusual. A huge number of trans women in Asia are entirely happy to stand in front of the mirror, see a beautiful face and boobs, a nice pair of hips and a dick. It doesn't cause them a problem at all, because of the level of social acceptance. When they're with their partners accept them as women. As for there not being AGPs here, no, it just doesn't. No, it's not true. I can take you up to the comedy bars in Diamond. We can go along Walking Street, and I can show you loads and loads of AGP ladyboys, and you'll know instantly. I mean, I can show you an hour's wait, and you'll see ladyboys walking down the street with their girlfriends. It happens all the time. There's no shortage of AGP ladyboys here. It's just that they're less obvious because they transition younger and they're on the hormones earlier, and they are so much more feminine than you would think, and you're not used to looking at Asian facial types. They're very studied. One of the things about Western AGPs is that they often claim that they find it really difficult to act like women because they've been 40 years a guy. But these ones are starting at 14, and they've learned how to appear to be women. If you criticise them, they sometimes are a little bit over the top, and it's a bit like, that's a bit too much, But basically, the role that they play, the role of being a woman, they can do it. They're not a problem. They can do it, and they're here. The difference between Southeast Asia and certainly the United States and the Western Anglo-Saxon culture is this one of age of appearance. It's not so much age of onset, because if you read the literature, then AGPs frequently claim that their feelings set on at puberty or just after, but they suppress them for decades, literally. The difference is that here, a person who feels like that, she's going to go, I'm gay, right, I better get on the hormones. And she doesn't think twice. She goes, yeah, right, let's just do it. And then she'll hit the pageants, and she'll hit the comedy bars when she gets older. She might not have boyfriends. A lot of them never ever have boyfriends. They might do things like online sex work where they chat, and guys send them 10, 20 bucks. If they're doing like chat porn, they get a lot more. And they are perfectly capable of doing this. They don't underestimate how feminine and how sexually attractive an AGP ladyboy can be. They can be very, very much so. You're not talking about 40-year-old guys turning into women. You're talking about 14-year-old boys hitting the hormones then and growing up as women. It's a completely different thing. You can still see the difference between the AGPs and the HSTS, but the difference between the AGPs in Asia and the AGPs in the West is absolutely huge. You are beginning to see some AGPs in the West coming forward in much younger ages, and guess what? They look a lot more feminine. It's that simple. Okay, so thank you, personX. You gave me quite a lot to think about there, and I thought it was an interesting, you made quite a few good points there, worth repeating and worth getting out again to a broader audience. So please keep doing this. If you want me to answer some questions, don't hesitate. I'm happy to. Take care. I'm going to have some merienda now, because my delightful wife, Sam, my girlfriend, has come in and decided that she realised I would be starving by now. What a sweetheart. Brought me some lunch. Take care. Bye.